So if we just give it a minute or two, see if we have any more people coming in, and then we can start. But happy to see all of you here with us today. So how is everybody feeling this morning? Well, morning, afternoon, evening for some. The joys of transcontinental collaboration and engagement.
I think everyone is on June 1st, so that's covers it.
Yeah, no, really. Unless you're on a different calendar, but yes.
Yeah, so we've got, I suppose,
start, yeah, in the interest of time, I think we can start. So really, I want to first say welcome, a deep welcome to you all to what we're calling our Rebel Women launch party, and which kindly is being hosted by Creo Changemakers. So thanks to Amy Shinshong Santo, who's also one of the contributors. And what we wanted to do with you today in about an hour and 15 minutes was to share just tidbits from our anthology. But also we wanted to, if possibly, also have conversation with you, vibe on our various understandings of a critical question for us. So the question really that was being asked by us in the anthology. And this question was, what does it mean to be a rebel woman in today's world? But aside from that, what we also wanted to do today is to create, in some ways, a safe space, a space in which, a place in which we might be able to have a genuine dialogue, but also to be critical and perhaps even to be critical with each other and perhaps even to challenge each other a little bit. But really, in doing so, we wanted to have discussions that in which we treat each other with respect and a kindness, even if we are in disagreement. And as we've already mentioned, the proceedings are being recorded. So our hope is to share this proceedings with others who are not able to be here with us. So feel free to turn off your camera if you don't wish to be seen. First, I wanted to talk a little bit about the background of this anthology. So this anthology didn't really only start with us. It started with a conversation in March 2009 with a friend, Jasveen Aluwalia, and we were sitting in our temporary accommodation, so to speak, in Kabul, and we were just talking about the way we had lived our lives, how we had lived our lives differently, and what this meant. And we talked about the challenges and difficulties in that, and we started saying there must be many other women like us who are out there, sometimes feeling isolated, alone. And so this perhaps was an opportunity for us to try and connect with people. And so the idea of an anthology came up. And then spring forward to 11 years, to May 2020, in another chance conversation with Amina Humphrey, again, talking about what might it mean to live an empowered, conscious, and dream-filled existence. And through that conversation, there was mention of this idea of an anthology, and Amina kindly connected myself at that time to DIO Press, and they said they were interested. And from that, the idea was born, and Rapti was roped in quite quickly and readily, because we had collaborated on some other piece of work before. And then, as you say, the rest is, well, not history so much, but a series of her stories, right, from some amazing people around the globe. And so really, from that, we came to being able to publish the book, and that was published, as the contributors know, in January 2024. for. And Rapti will talk a little bit about the process that got us to that.
Indeed, indeed. No, thank you, Epiphania. So while we reflected on some of the backstories that came together to forge this work, what we really see, in fact, is a 15-year journey in its entirety. We thought it might be worth sharing on the process of crafting this anthology. So this anthology, at the very least, as we were sharing earlier, has been a labor of love. And for many of us as co-conspirators, it might not be too wrong in saying that this journey has been both thrilling as well as enthrallingly terrifying. Now, thrilling because as a call to join forces, we globally publicized the invitation for contributors at a time when the pandemic was just unraveling. So this became not only a call in community making, but also served as an existential lifeboat for many of us in times of multiple personal crises. What did it mean to inhabit and take up space in other ways? What did it mean to care and connect, especially in times of profound disconnection and immobility, as well as thinking through the everyday faces of survivors when caregiving and emotional labor has always been feminized. It's also been enthralling in the sense that it's the first for a lot of us in many ways, whether in terms of publishing a book chapter or laying bare our own intensely personal stories, and perhaps even crossing multimodal ways of expression that might not have been familiar territory for us as we bring together poetry, prose, photography, performance, and visual arts and more. So in our case, that's Epiphania and myself, for the very first time, it was the first for us in working closely together as friends and as former colleagues, and particularly across continents. Besides, one of the first things that may strike you in this anthology is how eclectic its life worlds and geographies that come together in various circuitous ways. The 35 or more voices and kindred spirits were some of our own friends and old colleagues, people whose work that were intimately known to us, that we called out to and invited, and of course the many others who joined us through the open call that we globally publicized. So all in all, ours is a chorus that knits together so many disparate worlds, from the discontents of global modernist medicine to the orange groves of Uruguay, from the queer pop-up libraries of millennial Hong Kong to the textile manufactories of the Philippines, to the gendered spaces of resistance across art galleries and studios of Ghana and South Africa, to the halls of contemporary neoliberal academia and many more spaces. So once again, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for joining us and celebrating this journey. With all 36 of us, it has truly been a privilege and honor. So I'd like to hand it over to Epiphania once again to share a little more of why a rebel anthology. Over to you, Epi.
Yes, so as Rapti said, really, so today what we would have is 9 out of the 34 contributors, and that's including our cover artists, right? Who's done some amazing work. You can see behind Rapti and myself. We want to share that with you today, as I said. But before that, I just wanted to touch upon why this anthology, and the reasons were several. We really brought this volume together in order to do the following. The first was really to highlight the lives, experiences, energies, and spirits of non-conformists from around the globe who also just happen to be women, right? And then the other thing was really to share their stories, but they were mainly stories of transformation that were often found through non-conformism. So whether that was about people crossing knowledge borders, trespassing beliefs, breaking and making boundaries, or transforming themselves in radical and profound ways. And out of that, we also wanted to express what was good, but also very challenging about living a non-conformist existence, especially as women. And additionally, we felt compelled to extend existing conversations, statements, and/or standpoints made by other rebellious women. So in other words, we also wanted to recognize their contributions in our lives and how they had also brought us to where we were, and how we were thinking. So beyond that, we thought of it as being the compilation or the book being a critical source for debates around especially our key question, and not only for women really, but what does it mean to be a non-conformist in our current times, right? So another reason was that for us, the anthology was also to be a reminder that none of us are ever alone in our pursuit of different modes of being and alternative ways of living in what is obviously for many of us a wounded world. So these alternative ways being loving, sacred, healing, and so forth. So we wanted the anthology to also potentially be a catalyst for community making across the globe, especially around things that matter dearly to us. So things like self-transformation, paradigm shifts, embodying sacred and creative existences, and critically reading the world that we're in, you know, speaking truth to power in some ways, right? But also, more importantly, being able to maybe also rewrite this world into something that's more just, inclusive, and loving for all of us, women or men, self or other. And then lastly, really, the anthology was a way of providing a call and response to all non-conformist women and men, as a reminder that, as I already said, you're not alone. You might be isolated in some quarters, but never alone. And we thought this, especially if we believe in the metaphysical, which then places us within a dynamic energy field made up of past, present, future, non-conformists. After all, they say we're breathing air that has been through all sorts of people's lungs, and probably drinking the water too. So that has implications in many ways when you think about it in that way. But now I'll pass to Rapti so that we might be able to move forward to having the first lot of presentations.
Thank you. Yes. So thanks very much, Epifania. So in the interest of time, let's move swiftly into some of the offerings of this volume. So altogether, we will share about 8 chapters out of 29 as a taster. We have 4 presentations first, after which we will have a brief question and answer session, followed by the next 4 offerings and then another Q&A. Before we deep dive into a broader discussion on the themes that we've heard today. We ask that you hold your questions until the relevant Q&A section. Those who have read the anthology will note that we're switching things up a bit by starting with the second part of the volume on being and becoming, as we believe that Amy Shimshin Santo's poem on bioluminescence of women makes for a very nice entry point to the volume today. Her contribution will be followed by an offering from Alicia Roth on her transition, evolution to being a woman, what is gained, what is lost, and the power of fearlessly embracing one's feminine power. Now, as you listen to these 2 presentations, do think of our overarching question for this session that you see on the screen, which is, what does it take to become a non-conforming woman? So, those are all yours, Amy. Take it away.
Right. Thank you, beautiful people. It's a joy to be here, an honor to be here in all the time zones on our planet. And I'm going to share 2 poems from the anthology. One is archaeological. It goes in to look at relationship to self. And the other zooms out. It's more like astronomy, reaching into the interstellar space to touch the stardust we're all made of. Random experiments in bioluminescence. She opened her mind, and the dream was already inside there. Behind the left rib rack, above the kidneys, roundabouting her lymphatic system, purring the word, yes. What lives inside the sound of a woman? Story that burns obstacleless. Fire that can obliterate the age-old willingness to hold anyone's hand but your own. Imagine a mass of stars with a magnitude of space and the value of 1. Ponderable space and infinite matter interact at the value of 0. Locate a pregnant question in the context of the infinite universe inside a woman's body. Factor in the rigid bodies of her antecedents, progeny, and futures. If she is positioned in contexts of inertia, tangible bodies and institutions in bounded space have a dampening effect. Her actions become reduced to carbon. This is common among Homo sapiens, but extremely irregular in star matter due to the scope of gravitating mass and incalculable velocities. Luminescence is equal in practice everywhere, as expressed in the phenomena of light. Empty space and local time, including clock time, whether X or X prime. Remember, a rigid body almost always corresponds with its shadow. Shadow figures touch, and their shadows also touch. The shadow can become infinitely great, propagating in persistent schematic arrangements. How might the universe inside a woman's body become infinite and unbounded when she is located in context when there is no room? Abstract figures in the continuum from 2 to 6 dimensions assume spherical space that departs from standard measurements, shift conditions to envision all points, spheres, planes, shadows, all circles, coinciding with each other. Envision the woman's body unbounded, beyond the pair of planet Earth, by changing gravitational fields of rigid bodies in bounded space. The woman's body becomes a luminous point.
Okay, so I'll just stop sharing because next deletion, I think you have a deletion needs to share, right?
I need screen share there.
Yeah.
Just a second. I don't have screen share.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is make you a host for a sec.
A host for a moment. Okay.
And then you share. And then...
I got it. Yep. Thank you. And let's see. I wanted to make it full screen. From beginning.
Yeah, from
okay.
beginning. Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, I'm ready. All right. I don't know how to make this go away. So I'm Alicia Gilly Roth, and I am a woman who was born in a man's body. And so the name of my chapter was Final Vows, and it is sort of a metaphorical commitment to my identity as a woman. And it starts with my gender affirming surgery. and the vows that I made to the Divine Mother just before they put me under. Sorry, okay. And so a quote from my story was on this day, and I can't see it for some reason. Having trouble with this. You can see the quote. On this day, I will give you my body. I have always owned your soul. That's a quote from the Divine Mother. Okay, this is Alan J. Roth from Whence I Came. And, you know, Alan never wanted to be a woman. That was not his goal. He wanted to be a boy when he was a child, and he wanted to be a man in the worst way. He wanted to be a good father to his children, a good role model to his son as his son went through puberty and became a man. And he wanted to be a good husband to his wife. And he wanted to be, wanted to respond to his wife the way a man responds to his wife. But Alicia is always living in the shadows. She was the other woman. And I always thought Alicia was an illusion, a sickness. I would throw her clothes away over and over again, destroy them, only to buy more clothes. And so what I learned was the illusion was Alan. And so spiritual transformation became really important to me, and learning about transcendence and be closer to the divine. And the more I studied this, I started to really look at myself, and a look in the mirror revealed that I was a woman. That is all I saw looking back. And so I made that commitment to do that. There we go. I made the commitment to be to transition. So being a rebel, being a rebel for me is claiming my place as a woman with an A, by the way, in a world that would rather not see me. And a part of being a rebel for me is also realizing I am as important as anyone else. I don't think I ever felt that way before. Alan lived in the shadows. Alicia doesn't. So living a lie serves no one. And part of being a rebel was surrendering male privilege. Before I started transitioning, I had no idea what privilege was. I took it for granted. Male white privilege, wearing a suit, has a tremendous amount of power. And when I gave that up, I learned a lot of lessons about not having that privilege. But even more of an arduous task, a more risky task, was surrendering the privilege of being normal. At least in the statistical sense, I became an outlier, very obvious in this world. I always say transition is about dying 1,000 deaths, but it's also about resurrection into authentic self. And to me, that's a tremendous contribution to the world. It also gives other people the permission to be their authentic selves. A willingness to see God in the eyes of others exactly as they are. That is what a rebel is to me. And that is a tremendous challenge. Imagine looking at our enemies and looking into their eyes and finding God there is probably one of the hardest tasks in my life, also known as love. Non-conformism. So in my view, culture is a context. It's not a universal truth. And I think sometimes we forget that. And we interpret behavior through our own lens. Truth is personal. It honors the individual. And so my intention in transition and just really my own personal evolution was an authentic expression of myself that portrays the radical acceptance of myself as an outlier, as someone who's very obvious in this world. And it gives me tremendous freedom. It gives me my wings. And freedom comes at a price, which is a whole other topic. And so my point is diversity is beautiful. It's a gift. It is not a problem. All the many ways that we see the world and the way we present in the world is a beautiful gift. And here's Alicia Jilly Roth. That is me. That is the real me. It is the person who I am proud of. It is, to me, the gift to this world. And from my chapter, womanhood is a celebration of life spent skating on thin ice. And so that is my experience. Now, I don't have an illusion that I am like all other women. I am a woman who was born in a man's body, which presents a number of other challenges. So for me, being a woman has been skating on thin ice, but it's the greatest experience that a girl could have. You know, I never realized that I was beautiful. And now I know that I am. And so are you. And I can see that. And so are you. And that is my presentation.
Okay. Thanks.
And my journey. Thank you.
Could you, you have to toss those back to me. So the 3 dots by my name. So if you click the 3 dots by my, on the right-hand side of my image, and then.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I under participants, right? Okay. Your host.
Okay, perfect. So we're back to tag you it. Okay. An inside bit of an inside joke. So let me just share my screen again. And this really to just briefly introduce let's see, the next group, which is actually the first, the first part of the anthology. So in this first part of the anthology was on resistance and rebellion. And first, out of this chapter, we have Veronica Cordova de la Rosa, who is going to give us some insights into her artwork offering entitled, Is She a Cow? With this work that she had in her chapter, Veronica drew parallels between the British beef industry and herself as a BIPOC immigrant trying to survive within the heart of England. And after Veronica speaks, will then be followed by a contribution from Reva Santo on the kind of shadow work that is required for self-transformation. Now, Reva's chapter actually sits within part 2, which is on being and becoming within the anthology. But as she also speaks of the importance of loving oneself in all of its darkness, we believe that she also then speaks to the importance of self-love for any kind of sustained resistance. As you listen to these presentations, we would ask you if you can think about the question that we have here, which is really, how can we as women rest, live, and or speak in our power? And so let me stop sharing and pass this on to Veronica. Who would share with us.
Sorry, I'm just trying to find the way to share my screen.
Oh, yes, it's
Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, we can see your screen. Yes.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah. My name is Veronica. I am Mexican indigenous from Mexico City. I live in London now, and my article, my writing is a narrative of my time in the UK during the COVID times. My writing kind of talks about many things, but mainly is parallel narrative to my artwork. It's not a description of my artwork, but it is kind of like a description or a way to say in words how I was feeling as a immigrant worker in the UK, working in a very famous retail store. It's very, very famous. And I was working as an assistant where after I finished my PhD in arts. So I was infected with COVID, like the first strain, and I had at home like a little wooden cow, which I brought to show you, which is a souvenir from Zurich. And this is everything I have other things at home. I was living by myself, and I was very, very, very sick. But I was still I could manage to get some paintings. I have friends bringing things, and I managed to do a series of paintings in which I drew from direct observation, which is still life drawings, the cow with different objects. One of them was toilet paper because I literally didn't have any, and the neighbors in Oxford helped me. The community, when I was living in Oxford, my neighbors and friends were really amazing people who helped me to survive that time, including, I would say, Rapti was very supportive too. And I think that's how I am in the book, because Rapti and Epifania were very, very supportive during these times that was very, very hard for me. In terms of the COVID, but also in terms of like how I observed that my colleagues, people working in grocery stores or the working class, which are mainly BIPOC communities, were sent to work because we were like frontline workers. And I could see, like, before this happened, I could see the disparities, the injustice of many immigrants, BIPOC immigrants working in jobs, in retail jobs where there's no way to progress. It seems it's just for certain people where the progression will go in work. So I could witness all of that, and I will say this work is now in the past. But some of my colleagues, and I am in a different place. I think this has been part of my journey. This book means a lot to me and the community who is part of it too. I would say my artworks are like, I will see everything as a map, like everything will guide you somewhere. But the cow, I saw it as myself, and I was on top of things all the time, even in isolation. And this is how I feel now, going to the question, what does it mean to be a rebel woman in my context, where I am in the UK as a working class artist? I would say to learn a rebel, I would say woman with as it is written, with a question, no, it's not a question mark, with a quotation mark. I would say it's important that we learn to regulate our emotions. It's important that we learn we learn about human rights. We must join unions, and it's important that we also decolonize ourselves, and we share resources with other people. And then in our actions, it's important that we behave like in an anti-racist way, also helping others to build their own maps. In my case, it means to teach other other how to make art and see themselves in other in artwork. So I would say that it's important that we do not identify with the labels constructed by others. There are plenty of labels now. And it's important that we become subjects of our own desire. And I would say thank you very much. And I'm very grateful I survived the pandemic. I'll say thanks to everybody who supported me in that journey. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Could you toss it back to me? The ball back
Yes.
to me. Thanks. And maybe Reva. And we're realizing time is running away from us. So we might have the discussion at the end completely.
Are you ready for me?
Yes, I think, do I have it back?
Yes, I think so. But I can start while you're figuring that out as
Yes,
well.
you can start that. But Veronica, you just need to click the 3 dots at the right-hand corner of my name and make me host. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Riva Santo. I am a multidisciplinary artist from Los Angeles. And I wrote this essay called Self-Love, Vision, and Darkness during the pandemic. But I'm really appreciative to actually be in this new section, not in the being and becoming section, because a lot of what I've been thinking about now has been, how do we, in the search for new pathways, given everything that's going on in the world, how do we kind of stretch our imaginations? And I think that during the pandemic, it was a really rare opportunity for all of us to pause and go inward and really, really reflect on our patterns. And now it's been an opportunity to reflect on how to externalize that work and create new structures based on some of that work that we may have had time for in 2020, 2021. So I'm going to read a little excerpt for you here now. I write to you with a veil before my eyes. The fear is this, that I will never see again as I once saw. The light has dimmed around me, and I'm being forced to learn to see in the darkness. I am being encouraged, albeit against my will, to lean into the cat-like, intuitive sensory awareness that I fear so deeply, and use this to move through space. I am being encouraged to feel into the terrifying power of my divine, slick, feminine movements, to feel the blood pulsing in me, connecting me to legacies of survival among women on both sides of my heritage. Over the years, the self-judgment of being wrong has sent me into fear, worry, panic, and physical disconnection from my own body. I learned to suppress all unfavorable feelings, and the longer I neglected them, the more they grew. Now that the panic has begun to subside, and I've come to accept these new eyes of mine, I see that my subconscious was simply asking for the same love, care, and attention that I so readily offer the other parts of myself. I think of how plagued we are by this social training to look away from the things that are unbecoming. But if we look away from the lessons, they will only fight harder to be seen and attended to. When we dishonor our shadows, we disconnect from our divine feminine. Acknowledging this has opened my eyes to new dimensions. As my eyes adjust to the realms of darkness and shadow, I realize that all of the wisdom, guidance, and groundedness that I've desired exists within this space. It exists within my very body. I have shut out connection to my divine femininity for so long, but I'm coming to find pleasure in cultivating these new senses. I feel rebellious for insisting that my full self be integrated into my everyday existence. My newfound sense of wholeness comes from the cosmologies of my lineages that embrace both the sun and the moon, the masculine and the feminine, the light and the dark as essential parts of creation. From this vantage point, my wholeness means embracing the wisdom of all range of human emotions. It means making space for wild expression, for sensuality, for sexuality, for intuition, for magic. There is wisdom in all of it. I stood no chance at survival without the depth of my night vision. It enables me to feel and give breathing room to the parts of me that I have left balled up in a dark vault for far too long. As I slowly untangle them now, they deliver secret messages about myself and about the universe. They are bold and clear, and they want me to step out into the world with that same boldness. I was afraid to entertain them for fear that they would draw me in so deep and lose me to an underworld of no return. Now, I see that they only seek to be held tenderly as I have held my own light. They are asking for me to re-empower myself with all of that sacred energy that has been stripped from me. They want this of all of us, to see that if the feminine were not in fact powerful, there wouldn't be generations of strong movements trying to erase it. Without my feminine power and my sacred night vision, my existence becomes hollow, one-dimensional, and inauthentic. Without it, it's easier for me to be molded into a good woman, a polite woman, a productive and effective woman. I would much rather be whole. Thank you.
I have to remember to take thank you, Reva. And at this stage, I think we will find ourselves not conforming to our own timetable. But I would really like for us to just 1 minute. So I think in the interest of time, we would move ourselves forward and have the other presentations, and then open up for any questions at the end. But in this interim, I would suggest putting your questions in the chat for us, so we at least see them. So Rapti will move us forward with talking about this next part.
Indeed. So so we'll be jumping to the third part of our anthology, which is community and connection. And we have offerings in particular from Tammy Shell Obudi, sharing some insights into caring within education, which she approaches through a critical reading of ethno-philosophy as praxis. And this is then followed by Galia Bonnet's contribution, which is a lesson in radical mothering, as embodied by KHLD, whose story Galia has been entrusted with sharing. Now, in this anthology, Galia and KHLD's offering is actually situated in part 3 on being and becoming. However, as you will see, that their stories also very much speaks to how to develop alternative forms of community and connection, even in the face of decades of socio-historical conflict and oppression. So as you listen to these two presentations, do think of the overarching question over here, which really is, how do we forge alternative kinds of community, connection, or interaction that both support as well as challenge us at the same time? Over to you, Tammy.
And in just 1 minute, I need to get the presentation.
Epiphania, can I upload it? Because if you upload it, then I cannot change the slides in my own path. Or can you? Or can I?
Just a minute. I would have to do the slides for you, but I need to escape from our one first.
So if I can do it, it would be easier for me.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
If I can be the co-host, like I can share my own screen.
Okay. When you click share, does it give you the option? Or no?
No.
No?
No, where do I see that?
Tammy, when you go to the bottom of the thing and you try and unmute, and you'll see that there's a red arrow, a green arrow up. It says share. You can share there.
Oh,
there we
okay.
go.
Host disabled participant screen sharing. That's what it says. Shall I say okay? Am I? Can I do it right now? I don't understand. No, I can't.
Okay, just 1 minute. My screen is being naughty with me. I wanted to share.
Okay, just upload it. I don't want to take your time. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's okay. I've got it. Can everybody see
But
it?
now it's you. It's not me.
Yes, but can it?
So I depend on you
And
to.
then so if you tell me when and I'll move.
Yeah, it kind of okay. It will be easier it will be because I'm used to say it in my own pace. Okay. All right, so move to the next slide. Okay, so I want to start with a quote from Wittgenstein that says that language is a labyrinth of paths. You approach from one side and know your way about. You approach the same place from another side and no longer know your way about. Please move to the next slide. Oh, I can't see. Hold on, I have to put it down. Okay. So caring for me is also a new language. I mean, not for me, but it's a different language. The standpoint of caring emphasizes the realization that human beings and the entire universe are like one big web, and hence any rupture at one end affects the entire web. You can move to the other one. Okay. So, hence, conflicts are inherent in any species' nature. Coping with them less violently requires education that is rooted in inclusive caring relationships. This expansion undermines the ingrained cognitive and emotional habits that establish our epistemology since infancy. Questioning the oppressive epistemology that gears toward reclusive education that can benefit the ruling toxic patriarchal class. I want to emphasize when I say patriarchal, I don't mean specifically to men, I mean to specifically ruling toxic masculinity or patriarchal. So women can be also embrace the same patterns. Next slide, please. Learning through caring also means learning with passion and curiosity, which can open us to others, which I view as sometimes as a threat to the ruling class. Inclusive caring means that our educational compass is geared towards reconciliation and the elimination of violence in any domain. Next slide, please. This approach, caring, primarily entails resistance the ubiquitous dominance of hegemonic patriarchal ruling class epistemology, which shapes our relationships with the other. Next. Emotional and cognitive habits. The approach of caring helps us question habits of thought and emotion that shape our relationships with ourselves and others. It unravels the political and economic forces that govern our epistemology, influencing how we are trained to view ourselves in relations with others, and also how we view others and ourselves separately. Next slide, please. It is vital to change these power relations and question the hegemonic patriarchal epistemology through conflictual and critical education grounded in inclusive caring. Intersectionality is, for example, a good way to look at it. Next slide, please. Ethnophilosophy is one of my rebel facet because I insisted of incorporating ethnography with philosophy and culture and gender theory, which was not acceptable by my committee, but I did it anyway. So ethnophilosophy juxtaposes people's voices with hegemonic scholarly discourse, embracing diverse perspectives and practices. This process assists in identifying gaps between scholarly discourse and materialistic perspectives on caring, fostering a more grounded dialogue applicable to reconciliation and violence reduction in any domain. Ethnophilosophy recognizes that rationality and emotions are inseparable. Next slide, please. So I just want to end with a quote from one of the teachers. Is a Latino in Northeast LA. I love this quote of his. a pedagogy of hope. Then one day I say it to his students, we are serious what we are talking about. And I looked at them and their eyes are so bright. I just say that his students are Latinos as well. And their eyes are so bright and they're so full of hope. And then I thought to myself, we're going to talk about this, hating white people, but I'm not going to do it to the point that they are going to leave my room jaded. I did give them different perspectives, like cultures and the like. So in essence, he was one of my research participants, one of my case studies. And so I really like this quote very much. Next slide, please. So to end things, inclusive and reclusive caring. Originally it was tribal caring. Now I'm trying to change it to switch it to reclusive caring. Caring education can foster compassion even in moments of crisis, if this is the infrastructure. Education rooted in inclusive care serves as a guiding beacon. It establishes the bastion of democracy beyond mere declaration. It is the benchmark for any human society aspiring to live in safety and tranquility, especially in the digital era that saturates consciousness with false and violence information. Next, please. So 2 more slides. Okay, so I want to end up, and this is another rebel woman, because I'm always being teased that it's a very feminine metaphor, but I don't care. So for me, education is like a perfume. We never know in advance how the fragments will be observed and smell on the body at any given moment, but we still wish to spray a sublime scent. The last one, just to thank you all. Okay, just thank you for listening. This is from London bust from so many years, and I think that it's very nice to have such decorations everywhere that actually emphasize caring and kindness over violence. Thank you so much for listening. That's it.
Hi, should I go now? Okay. So hi everybody. I'm Galia Bonet. I'm talking to you from Israel. I'm very excited to be here and excited about this unique book. My contribution is a true story that was shared by a student of mine in class. On the day that she shared this story, the whole class was shocked and shaken. And I too was personally shaken. I remember driving home that day and my heart was racing. And for weeks, I couldn't stop thinking about this story and telling it to all my friends and family. I felt that other people have to hear this story. I felt that if they hear this story, they would not only be inspired by this incredible woman, but also realize that the lines that divide and separate us, these lines that feel like they're so definitive, like they're made of steel, can actually be melted with radical kindness and humanity. So just to give you a gist of the story, my former student, to whom I gave the pseudonym Shajia, which means bravery in Arabic, is a Palestinian Israeli. I explain what this means in the chapter, so I won't get into that now. And the story is about how, through a wild turn of events, she became the foster mother to a Jewish girl. What that meant for her family, her father who supported her mother who wouldn't speak to her, her husband, her other kids, the girl herself, and how she encouraged and supported her daughter in maintaining her Jewish identity and faith. She was so determined, not by ideology or political agenda or any desire to rebel at all, but simply by the human connection she formed with the girl. Once she took this girl in as her daughter, her motherly love was her North Star, and she was able to navigate the most complicated situations you can imagine. Another layer of the story was the reaction of the class to her story. All of the other students were also Arabs, and there were many different feelings in the room. And yet another layer was the meaning of the story to me, a Jewish Israeli woman. And I have to say that this story carries even more significance for me today, when the violence and despair are so extreme. This story, on one hand, feels like it is so surreal, so out of this world, so unconnected to everything that is going on. But in fact, it is very real, and it takes place within this context. And precisely because of that, it can offer an alternative way of thinking and imagining the future. For me, I feel like it reminds me to cherish the human, to always choose to see the human beings, to be committed to humanity. I think the politics often take up the whole spotlight, and we get so drawn into the politics that we forget about the human beings. In the recent months, there has been this dichotomy of pro-Palestine and pro-Israel, as if we have to choose sides, a dichotomy that left out so many of us. And then this new camp emerged called pro-human, which believes in the rights and the lives of all human beings and strives for a solution that will guarantee the rights and the lives of all human beings. And so this is my camp. And I know that in that camp, I will also find Shadia and her daughter and her entire family. And I hope I will find you all there too. So thank you very much. And thank you, and thanks to KHLD for allowing me to share her story.
Thank you, Galia. Let me just, I'm presuming everybody can see my screen. Yeah. So finally, we have the last two presentations. These, in relationship to, we put them under the theme for the fourth part of the volume, the theme of transformation and trailblazing. In particular, we'd have first Jeanette Charles will share really what is in many ways a personal, political, and metaphysical insights from her chapter, which closes our volume with a prayerful incantation rooted in African traditions and enlivening Haitian and Yoruba perspectives. And we felt it was important for the anthology to close on a prayer. But then also after Jeanette Charles, we then close with what we would definitely describe as the most important offering of all offerings, which is from our eldest amongst elders, a real life trailblazer who is our own Auntie Joan Cambridge. We are very fortunate to have Auntie Joan in the volume and also here with us today so that we might learn some nuggets of wisdom really at the feet of what can only be described as a living legacy. Auntie Joan's chapter on her life world is co-authored with Jeremy Peretes and can be found in part one of the anthology on resistance and rebellion. However, to all extent and purposes, Auntie Joan's life work embodies the spirit of transformation as she has blazed a clear trail for many of us to try and follow. So as you listen to these last two final presentations, do think of the question that we have up, which is, who must we trailblaze alongside with? And in what ways can we transform ourselves and reality? And maybe even not only who we trailblaze alongside with, but who do we follow as well in some ways, right? This also becomes important. And so I'll give the floor to Jeanette.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here today, but also the greater invitation of being part of the anthology. So, you know, I realized from a really young age that a more just and equitable world can only emerge as a result of collective struggle. And that said, when I initially sought out to write this contribution, I intended to write more of a historical narrative about rebel women and movements from Latin America and the Caribbean. However, another narrative kind of emerged in the process of writing. And in terms of this question on trailblazing and transformation, you know, one of the realizations I had was that transformation not only comes from how we politically struggle for justice and liberation, but also how our struggles are intimately interwoven with a deep understanding of spirit and the cosmic. And so this powerful relationship between the spiritual and the material is one that really inspires me, being a daughter of the Haitian diaspora and growing up in Black and Brown Los Angeles, but also is one that I would say speaks to a longer strategic compass that's existed for millennia. And in honoring this relationship, we start to reveal the layers of what our ancestors have fought for and won, and what we're able to inspire in newer generations, signaling to what we're capable of and the futures that we can build. So that said, I do really believe in this piece really does speak to the work that's necessary to dismantle systems of oppression, which requires tremendous effort, energy, and spirit, the faith, the hope, and the otherworldly guidance. And my chapter, you know, elaborates on the history of African and Indigenous-led liberation movements, the role of women in those movements, and the exercise of writing and reciting praise poetry as a revolutionary act through the lens of the Haitian Revolution and Nigerian Isheshe tradition, which is also known as Ifa. So that said, I'll read an excerpt from my chapter. Okay. So in Haiti, the people's history tells of the ceremony in womyn forest, where self-liberated Maroons assembled in 1791 and launched what became a 13-year war for independence. Their clandestine gathering, led by Mambo priestess Sisif Fatiman and voodoo priest Duti Bukman, united African rituals and political strategies under the protection of moonlight and the night shadow. As a result, their anti-colonial mission became imbued with spiritual potency through prayer and sacrifice. The ancestors and deities they called upon assisted the island's African-led forces to victory. In 1804, Haiti established the first Black Republic of the Western Hemisphere. Arguably, this moment likewise marked a pivotal point in the role women have played and have continued to exert as spiritual advisors, warriors, and leaders in the struggle. This celebrated ceremony was one of countless that took place in Haiti and throughout the Caribbean in the name of abolition and Black liberation. Haiti is a core example of the close relationship between ancestral traditions and people's struggles that have existed in African and Indigenous communities throughout the Americas and beyond. Millions honor the Haitian Revolution on January 1st, which shares its revolutionary commemorations alongside the Zapatista uprising and the Cuban Revolution. And this rebellious trinity captures the intimate connection forged over millennia between our material conditions and the spirit world, pillars of our sojourn earthside. In the 21st century, movements continue this tradition, whether on the front lines of mass marches in Honduras against the 2009 coup with Garifuna Dugu religious elders, or at popular convenings of Maria Leonza and Santeria practitioners in Bolivarian Venezuela. These are testaments to how people embody and practice revolutionary spirituality, traversing national and cultural lines. Anywhere there is a pursuit of justice, there is a simultaneous fight to uplift the human spirit. This history is undeniable, even if seldomly or vaguely written, and not uncommonly, women have taken up a variety of spiritual, political, and economic leadership roles on this revolutionary road to liberation. Thanks.
Epifania, you have to unmute yourself.
I think you're still muted, Epifania. Auntie Joan, are we ready?
Yes.
So
Sorry, let me go back to that image.
Okay.
Joan.
Is that all right? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
perfectly.
Yeah, that's an artist's impression of my character, Basidi Dolly, the Guyana rainforest bag lady. And, you know, she's just pregnant with it. Actually, it's oh, Jeremy will remind me, please, Jeremy, because, you know, at my age, I forget names. But she was a student of Jeremy's, and she decided with some other artists to give an artist's impression, because we asked her of my character, Basidi Dolly, the Guyana rainforest bag lady. Now, Basidi, you might say, is my alter ego. And through Basidi Dolly, I can go as crazy as I want to be, you know, in order to stay sane, if that makes sense to you. So what happens to me that Basidi Dolly comes to the rescue of? It's the feeling that all around me, mouths are muzzled, as the Guyanese poet Martin Carter says, by the food it eats, they eat to live. There's so much fear around that I need a Basidi Dolly in my life who goes away, as we say in Guyana, to signify mad people. She does go and come. She does go and come. Means she goes and she comes. I can say quite unabashedly that that's the way I am. As I said, in order to keep sane, I've got to go a little crazy sometimes when all about me have muzzled mouths and they're not allowed to speak. And I'll tell you what shaped me before I read this little piece from my presentation in the anthology. It's a story I witnessed where someone, my husband actually, was confronting a Nazi in Germany. And he said, I want you to answer the question. Did the Jews know what was going to happen to them? Couldn't they see the writing on the wall? And after the murring and, you know, and getting all red and hot under the collar, you know, my husband told him, calm down, you know, that's your business. That's for you and your God, your conscience or whatever. I just want to get to another question. He said, you know, and I am confusing story, I'm sorry. He said, were you ever a Nazi? And when the man got confused in the murder and so on, he said, just answer the question. And he said, yes, I was. Everyone around me was a Nazi. What would you have done, Julian? And the question Julian asked him, did the Jews know what was happening? Couldn't they see it coming? His response to that was, yes, they knew, but they were talking about it in whispers. And that's what has shaped my attitude to everything that's happening to me right now, as I see these endless plantations recreating themselves in new versions. I live on a 21st century plantation. And My people cannot express it or even identify with it. First, because they're not educated enough to know their history. And secondly, because they are not allowed to speak what's truly on their minds. And I lived through that character who imagines herself pregnant with the future and all of that. And, you know, I was hoping Jeremy would have helped me put up the one with me playing the role of Basdi Dolly, which I did once on stage here. And she, when she goes and comes, and she go and come, you know, as a mad woman, as they call her, she goes and she communes with the ancestors. And she comes back with the messages for those who would listen. And that's how I maintain this semblance, if you want to say, of sanity, which is really confined to the locks and chains of definitions, quote unquote. I'll read from my piece now. Jeremy asks me, he says, I'd like to ask you about local religious forms like comfort that find expression through your story of Clarice's going and homecoming. Clarice is the character in my book, Clarice Cumberbatch Want to Go Home. Can you expand some, for instance, on your portrayals of how Rastafari, as you said, as well as Maroon philosophies inform Afro-Caribbean specific notions of freedom? And my response is this. In the book, the Anthology on Non-Conformism, yes, spirituality. You know something? And incidentally, that is what, you know, I smiled when it was, who was it? Elise, right? Read from it this morning. She read from this passage from my work, which I meant to read to you today. You know something? When I'm in the rainforest, I feel the presence of all those Maroon ancestors who escaped the plantation to form communities such as the Brazilian Quilombos. I believe these ancestors are informing the natural mystic blowing through the air that Brother Bob Marley urges us to tune into. There's an African proverb that says, you should walk through life as though you have 3,000 ancestors walking behind you. Even though you're alone in the bush, if you really know your history, you feel their presence. You understand the reason. I'm sorry, I lost my way. You understand the reason, and you're never afraid. Your soul is at peace with them because you know that they mean you no harm. Black folks need never frighten Jumbi. Jumbi, of course, is spiritual that always people are afraid of. They needn't be afraid of spirits. On Ukariba mornings, I used to wake up before birdwife wake to visit a magnificent giant of a forest tree, to press my back against this tree trunk and let its life force flow into me. I did that every morning on Ukariba. It was an unbelievable, gratifying ritual. And I close with the quote in the beginning of this section. Some of us want to write and wonder the garden, and breathe in the sky and nourish nature and quietly create new pathways and live our lives as our art. It is a terrible thing when you're not allowed to be free and your lips are muzzled and you're locked up if you have an opinion that represents your people. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to say this, because this is part of my sanity. Thank you, Rapti. Thank you, Epiphania. Thanks all. And of course, thank you to Jeremy, whom I met when we took the first ever speaking in African Guyanese Creolese, the language, the writing system at the University of Guyana, the first ever one, and he happened to be in that class with me, and I'm grateful for him for helping to pull all this out of me and making me see what Basidi Dolly can do. Thank you.
Thank you, Auntie Joan. And this is, I believe, the picture just quickly that you mentioned of yourself acting as Basidi Dolly. Okay, so
I'm not hearing very well. I don't know why. I'm not hearing you very well. I'm hearing the others well, but not you. I sent you a little text a little while ago.
okay, yes. What I was saying, Auntie Joan, is I had shared the picture that you mentioned, the one that had you acting as Basidi Dolly. So the audience was able to see that. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yes.
So
Thank
at this stage, I think we're wrapping our Q&A deep dive all into one, and Rapti, I guess, can hold us in that space.
Yes, indeed. So as Epiphania said, firstly, thank you immensely to all for that powerful multi-stranded sharing. So we'd like to open the floor for general questions and answers. You can, of course, type your questions in the text box, or you could articulate them verbally by raising your hand in the reactions, by clicking on the reactions icon below. So.
And that's even from other contributors, obviously, because it probably raised some thoughts for them as well in relation to their own pieces.
So we open the chat?
Yes, we have Madeline Taylor. Madeline?
I think you're muted, Madeline.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. This was just wonderful. I just wanted to say I'm very touched and moved by every single presentation. And I just think gatherings of women like this is actually the most life-giving thing we can do on this planet right now. It is absolutely essential that we hear each other's voices, that we support each other's journeys to authenticity and to self-expression and to self-empowerment and mutual support. It's absolutely critical that we embody all of our nurturing capacities. And I just wanted to say I'm just thrilled to have been invited by Tammy to join you this morning.
Thank you, Madeline.
Thank you, Madeline.
Any other comments, thoughts? Veronica?
This is for all the contributors, and my question is, do the contributors feel that there is a before and after when you submit your work?
For me, for example, it was really hard because it's been like 4 years, I think, then since I submitted my article, and I'm in Tel Aviv right now, Israel, and the situation is so difficult. And so I felt a little bit distanced from my article, although it is relevant to this day, but it's not really linked directly to the situation that I experience nowadays. So it was very hard for me. And I wrote already another piece related to the situation in Israel. So, but it's still relevant. I just wished I could entrench it in the current situation.
Mm. Anybody else? Any other comments, thoughts?
I want to answer to that comment. Maybe what I'm saying is not right. I'm just like trying to process information that is being said here. This approach by Jose that we are not here to talk about white people and to blame them for many things. But also about what Auntie John was saying, that some people do not have access to the history of their people, like what happened in the past. And sometimes you don't want to antagonize, you don't want to put people in conflict, but somehow we have to go through the procedure or the process of knowing our history, especially the ones who have been colonized. We need to know that in order to understand in which situation we are now and how our ancestors are with us. So it's not antagonizing, but education has a responsibility to teach the kids who are the most vulnerable, prone to violence, that violence maybe is not the answer in certain contexts, but in others is self-defense. Unfortunately, it's being criminalized. I said this because people mention ZLN, Zapatistas from Mexico. I am Mexican, and it really hurts what is happening in Palestine. It really hurts what is happening in my country with the climate change. And we don't want to antagonize, but we have to ourselves go to acknowledge our history, and that brings lots of pain. We have to go through that pain. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
No, thanks for bringing that up, Veronica, because it sort of nicely ties in with the question. Sort of wanted to go back to Alicia's talk about dying 1,000 deaths or more. This constant process of reinventing oneself, of the world around you, that painful act of metamorphosis, as you will. I just wondered if some of our sharers and probably the wider audience had any thoughts on that.
I would like to share. I mean, I think for me and what I've learned in my experience was there's a lot of people who seek to marginalize me or to label me or to minimize me as an individual. And even a lot of anger for letting go of male privilege because, male white privilege reigns supreme. How could you give it away? But what I think my strength is letting all of that go and not making it my focus, but having a very clear intention for myself, being very intentional about moving forward, which is about bringing love into the world. And doing that the best way I can, and doing it with people who are marginalized, with people who are not taking care of themselves well, even with people who have this stilted, ignorant view of other people, and trying to bring love to that because I think love is a very evolving force, and it's probably the most powerful force that there is, in my view. So I think that's my intention, and my transition has brought me face to face with that because it's so easy to be a victim for me. And rather than choose that view, I'm making another conscious choice.
Oh, may I say something else?
Yes.
I'd like to say in the question at the bottom of the section I presented in, who do you trailblaze with? And I suppose that the answer to that question is people who are unafraid to express themselves, who they really are, and to have an environment that encourages free expression of your identity. And one other thing, I'd like to recommend it. I don't know. I think there's a whole great problem in the world right now about religion and religious contentions and all of that. I get over all of that, as I said in the opening, in the questionnaire. I have a mirror that I look in and I pray like hell to my God, confessing that I am unequal to this task and asking that person I'm looking at, eyeball to eyeball, to help me, please. In all humility, I beg for help. I think that's called self-empowerment. And I'd like to teach it to children.
Alicia?
Thank you all. Yes, I'm grateful to be here and be present and to hear from all the people that have shared and to get the wisdom. Thank you, Auntie Joan, for sharing your wisdom. And one of the things that I was thinking about and noticing as reading the book was the way that, as you, Epifania and Rapti, called in the introduction, the divine, unseen, unspoken forces, the undulating energy pathways, there seemed to be like this connection to spirit and to non-human beings and energy, ancestors. Zulika Bibi talked about the being the trees, being the water, being the river. And so I think Veronica's question about before and after, for me, one of the awarenesses that I have more and more all the time is that finding that courage and voice to be a rebel woman, to be non-conforming, to resist all these forces of oppression and violence, the connection to spirit and the spirit practices and that connection to the divine is essential in giving me the courage and the strength and knowing that my ancestors are part of this, and to understand that seeking that history that I have that's been been removed from me is partly through studying and also through spirit and the land and the earth. And so I just noticed that all throughout the book as one of these ways that we have the courage to be rebels.
Yeah, no, thank you, Alicia. Because I know for myself, one of the things that I realized was that, you know, for however long, I mean, for myself, it's almost 50 plus years, not as long as some others in the room, but always it was my own might somehow, or my own struggle within this thing by myself. But over time is realizing that, no, okay, I've tried it, the material, your body way. Maybe it's time to try something different and see where that leads, right? Yeah. But Rapti, sorry, you were saying something.
No, I just wanted to shout out to say, I mean, Alexandra, did I see you raise your hand?
I did raise my hand earlier, yes. Sure. I just really, really want to say thank you so much for everybody's utterances here. I've really been very, very affected by everybody's expression and everybody's honesty and authenticity in what they've been saying. And I think that that's also testament to, I had that sense, I must say, when you first released your open call, that there was something very different about this project. And I think there was something that just captured my imagination, that you were doing things in a different manner, that you weren't sort of just staying within certain ideological language or certain disciplinary, pathways. And I've been somebody, this is part of my own rebellion in life. I've been inside of universities, outside of universities, in newspapers, in books, in this, in that, or, very, very maverick person. And I'm so grateful for language that is, that makes space for spirit, that makes space for poetry, and in the vein of politics, in the same passion of politics, and not to just keep it into sort of very, very disciplined and didactic language. I'm often in real struggle with that I feel my own tongue has been disciplined in my whole life, and I'm trying to undo that all the time. And I really, really just want to say also that I really resonated so strongly with what Joan said about your alter ego, Basili Dali, that she allows you to go as crazy as you want to go in order to stay sane. There's just something about that really, it really hit home for me. But just thank you to everybody. It's really such an honor, and really, really felt to be here. So thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you. I also want to say to others, I think I'm a little Zoom challenge in terms of the chat. So if you sent anything in the chat, because it was set up, I think, only to send directly as opposed to the group, let me know. Hopefully now it's coming out better.
No, it's still to you directly.
Yes.
But that's okay.
But then, so maybe I'll read, I see something from, I think, Madeline Taylor saying, asserting the legitimacy of our perceptions is a necessary process to protect the 7th generation, valuing our nurturing capacities and raising our individual and collective voices in celebration of nurturing and partnership is the most life-giving mindset that we can embody. I value what you've done in putting this anthology together. Thank you. In many ways, a part of this was also about trying to save our own selves as we're moving along, on planet Earth, trying to work out who we are, what we're doing, and who we can do things differently with. Yeah. So thank you, really, to all the contributors and for those who are joining us today. Are there any last comments, questions?
Just with respect to Karen, just to say that we should embrace a different language, not the common language that is ubiquitous on media and everywhere. Part of the change of violence is not to replicate and perpetuate the same language.
And I would say that that the evolution of thought and the evolution of being in this world starts with a personal evolution. It starts with what goes on inside the self, and aligning with the higher good is really a very personal inner experience.
Thank you.
There's some more messages. Okay, Alicia said, love what Veronica said about becoming the subjects of our desire. I wish that for all of us. Yeah. Tanya, thank you. Beautiful and inspiring. Any others?
I would like to say a special thanks to Epi and to Rapchi for just stewarding the labor of making something together over a long period of time. It takes a lot of diligence and a lot of detail and a lot of vision, a lot of patience to put all of these different expansive thoughts together in one object that we can be with and use. And I just wanted to thank everybody who's here today, and send out an embrace. And I just really want to acknowledge Epi and Rapti for your for that labor, you know, that important labor of connection.
I mean, thank you. You know, at some point we didn't really know, especially the call, we didn't know, but we realized that we were not doing it alone. You know, the world was conspiring with us. Yeah, so great on that note. Yeah, it's really good. I just want to see if other comments people have, but really, yeah.
Julia says it's been an emotional piece for everyone. I'm taking time to digest it.
Yeah.
As are we all.
Yep. Very much.
And I know, and to add to Amy, I mean, we're ourselves immensely. There's so much of in some ways, sort of gratitude that's just so sacred in many ways, that in terms of this timeline, you know, we sort of co-journeyed together, and it's like these publications do take a long time. I mean, it's immense when you think about 4 years, and just the immense trust that you all placed in us. And I mean, Epifania and I can't. No, I really don't have the words to describe that. So I mean, I'm in awe just for the fact that, you know, all 35, 36 of us and more, since, when was it? I think May 2020.
Well,
and here we are.
It's COVID.
Yes, we've come full circle.
Yeah. But we are, as we say, that also niggling with the idea of maybe doing more and maybe digging deeper into the chapters. And if we do, we'll definitely share that and use it to. But beyond that, I think even digging into others' projects and work that they're doing, and if, you know, they want our input, our support, our bodies, our voices, let us know. Yeah, I would like to be able to be there. Yeah. Okay, so unless there's anything else, it's so hard to say goodbye. Yeah.
Thank you. Have a lovely evening. Take care.
Take care.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to our audience. So
yes, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.